Hi everyone, I'm Brian Cox, and in this video, I'll show you what you need to know to get ready for the next school year. Let's go ahead and talk about what we'll cover in this video. First up, let's talk about the live classes that we have for the 2026-27 school year. Then we'll talk also about the schedule for those live classes. And then I'll share with you what's available as recorded classes that you can start at any time. We're going to talk about the ordering deadlines for my kits for the upcoming 26-27 school year. And then I'm going to finish up this video by giving you a description of the kits you'll need, the supplies that you'll need for both electronics and coding classes. So let's get right into it. The live classes for the 26-27 school year are going to be Unit 25, which is Electronics with Brian, and then Unit 29, which is Coding MicroPython. So those are the two classes that will be available as live classes for the next school year. Let's talk a little bit about those classes. I'll come back and share with you a little bit more about the recordings that are available for all three of these, including Unit 28. We'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, so for the school year coming up, we have two classes. The first is called Electronics with Brian, and then the second is called Coding MicroPython with Brian. Now, these two classes I teach as independent classes. You'll have 2 days of electronics and then 2 days of coding on the days where I teach, or the weeks where I teach, I should say. Both electronics and coding, I am assuming students have no idea how to do anything with electronics or coding. We start from the very beginning of concepts at the beginning of each school year. Now, some important dates. For Electronics with Brian, we'll have a Getting Organized class on October 19th. That's where I share how to unpack all of your parts and then put them into the parts boxes that I recommend, which are available either from Harbor Freight or you can add them to your order when you order parts from me. More on that in a minute. Now, the first day of actual regular class is Monday, November 2nd. And so those are the dates you'll want to join. I highly recommend joining those live if you can, the organized class. And then, of course, we're ready for the first day of live class on November 2nd. Now, how about Coding MicroPython? With Coding MicroPython, the Getting Organized class will be that same week as the Electronics Getting Organized. It'll be on October 21st, so that's a Wednesday. And then the first day of regular class will be on Wednesday, November 4th. So the start time for all of my classes, both Getting Organized and regular live classes, will be 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. And classes occur every other week. So let me share with you what I mean by that. Here is the schedule for the entire month of November. And I know the writing's a little small, I'll zoom in here, but I hope this can help illustrate for you how things will work. So you notice we have our first set of classes on November 2nd through the 5th. I teach Monday through Thursday, and then we'll be off on Fridays when it comes to my classes. So you can see here that on Monday and Tuesday, we'll have Electronics with Brian, and that runs for 1 hour. Now, on the second day of electronics class, so that would be Tuesday, we'll have a discussion that happens after the first 1 hour of class. So the way it works is the two regular classes that start at 8 o'clock on Monday and Tuesday, those 2 hours are recorded and posted within 3 hours the same day for you to watch at your convenience if you can't join live. But then on the second day, at 9 o'clock Pacific time, we'll have a special class discussion, which also occurs on Zoom. This is an opportunity for students to ask questions that have come up during regular class time or when they're working on homework assignments. Okay, now talking about the same first week, then we have Wednesday and Thursday. That same week would be Coding MicroPython, 8 o'clock start time. But then notice then for the second day of class for coding, again, now that would be Thursday, then we'll have that same class discussion. Pulling back here to show you the full week view, week by week for the whole month, I guess I should say. You can see the following week, I do not have class, but then starting then on November 16th through the 19th are what I would say are my next pair of classes. So 2 days of electronics, 2 days of coding. So you'll always know that electronics will be on Monday and Tuesday, and then coding will always be on Wednesday, Thursday on the weeks that I teach. Then we skip a week, you can see, and then coming up here for the third week of instruction for me, that will be on November 30th, and then December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So be sure to make a note of this, but you can always go to the live classes page after you log into Supercharged Science, and you can see the full class schedule available at that time. And again, this pertains to the live classes for Electronics with Brian and Coding MicroPython. One last thing to mention, while each class is taught from the very beginning, both electronics and coding, it is totally okay for you to take both classes at the same time. I, in fact, have many students that join both my electronics and coding class for the school year. You can do one or the other, but you can also do both. I will be taking students through, from the very beginning. And by the way, even if you are not able to join live, you can always email me, Brian, B-R-I-A-N, at superchargedscience.com anytime you have questions, either after live class or when you're watching recordings. Now, speaking of recorded classes, already available on Supercharged Science when you have the proper membership, I have a full set of videos for the school year that you can watch as recordings for Unit 25, which is Electronics with Brian, Unit 28, which is Coding Arduino with Brian, and then Unit 29, which is Coding MicroPython. And we'll talk more about these two classes a little bit detail in just a moment between Arduino or MicroPython. But when you do the recorded classes, you can start now. You could order your supplies and start anytime you wanted to join. The recorded classes, you work at your own pace. Electronics and coding can be taken at the same time, but I only recommend taking one coding class at a time. And again, this is only for students pertaining to those who want to only do recordings and are not going to keep up with the live classes that will start later in the 2026 year, going into 27. Let's talk about the two coding classes for a moment. The coding class for this school year coming up is Coding MicroPython. That is using the Python language designed for hardware, a little computer device that will allow us to control things like lights and motors and bring information in from sensors. This school year we'll be using the device called the Raspberry Pi Pico RP2040. More on that when we talk about supplies. Also, though, available as a full set of recordings is Coding Arduino. That covers the C++ programming language and uses a different device. That's the Arduino Uno R3. So keep that in mind. If you're doing recording classes, you want to be sure to get the proper computer device if you're going to do them as recordings. Okay, now, here are some important dates in preparation for the 26-27 school year. And I recommend that you order as early as possible to make sure you have everything in time. Now, kits can be ordered at any time. I have kits available on my website, fvresearch.com, which is short for Future Vision Research. Those kits are available anytime, but if you want to be sure to have them in time for the Getting Organized classes, you want to place your order by September 7th, 2026. And again, this would be for domestic, in other words, within the United States. If you order bumping up against that date and you're outside the United States, it could take longer. You may not have them in time for the Getting Organized classes. But I do want to also mention that my 2 electronics kits for both electronics and coding are currently on sale until August 1st, 2026. Now, you may be watching the video after this date, so that date won't pertain to you. But the important deadline is September 7th, 2026. You can order after that date, but you would most likely not receive your supplies in time for my Getting Organized classes. But remember, even the Getting Organized class will be available as a recording. So you can still watch that Getting Organized and unpack everything with my help, so to speak, after the important dates that I share here. By the way, right now, as I'm accepting pre-orders, even now, the first shipping date for pre-orders will be August 15th. I build these kits to order, so I save up to see how many orders I have coming in, so I get all the supplies in at once. Okay, that's the important dates. Now, what about the actual supplies you need? So here we go. For Electronics with Brian, you would want to get the kit that I have on my website called Electronics Essentials. That gives you all the electronics parts that you need for the full electronics school year, in addition to the electronic parts needed for some earth science electronic projects that I have listed under Unit 25. You also need to have a digital multimeter. That's a device that lets you read different qualities of electricity, such as, well, let's say voltage, resistance, and current. Now, it's very important that you keep your parts organized. So I've actually designed ready-to-cut labels that you can add to your order that would fit into 2 Harbor Freight parts boxes. And you can see a little picture of the specific parts boxes right down here. When you order your Electronics Essentials kit from me, you can add a multimeter and those 2 parts boxes to your order, and then I include ready-to-cut labels that you can put in the lid of each of these trays, and that helps you find exactly what part you need when we are working on projects. The kits come with a parts list that tells you where to find each part within these parts boxes, so they're very handy. Now, I'll mention this here, and I'll mention again when we talk about coding. 2 of these parts boxes hold all the parts from both my Electronics Essentials kit and the kit for coding, which is called Sensors, Motors, and More. And again, you can purchase these boxes straight from Harbor Freight, and you could either purchase a set of ready-to-cut labels from me by themselves, or I provide a printout so you can print your own labels and put them in the boxes that you order. So there's your options for that. By the way, one Electronics Essentials kit is intended for use for 1 student. But I understand many families have more than 1 student in the house. So there's a couple of options. One is just one students or all students kind of building together during live class. But the option I recommend is that 1 student builds a project, and then the next student is able to watch my recordings from class, and then they have their turn with the kit to build the activity. It's really important to reinforce the learning that each student build their own activities, have their own trials and errors to learn how all the parts go together. Okay, that's Electronics Essentials. That's for the electronics kit. What about coding? So let's zoom out here for a moment and let's talk about coding. For coding MicroPython with Brian, that requires the Sensors, Motors, and More kit, and we're on version 3 of that. You also need the device called a Raspberry Pi Pico RP2040. When you add that to your order from me, it actually comes with a special, what's called a breakout board that I designed, and the little computer chip plugs into this board, and it gives you a layout of all the different pins, providing the names of what they do. If you don't get the breakout board, then you have to plug in the actual little computer device into what's called a breadboard or a temporary circuit board. So it's best or ideal to order that RP2040 straight from me, because then you'll get that. Now, also, in addition to the little Raspberry Pi Pico, you do need a Windows, Macintosh, or Linux computer to write the programs that we will use throughout the school year. And this can be the same computer that you use for Zoom to join the live classes. A tablet or Chromebook will not work. It has to be a full Windows, Macintosh, or Linux computer. Now, I do want to mention, remember that while you can add parts boxes, the 2 parts boxes to an order for coding MicroPython for the sensors, motors, and more, you only need 2 boxes to hold the supplies from both kits. So if you're buying both electronics essentials and sensors, motors, and more, and you do need both kits to do both classes, then you only need the one pair of the parts boxes. And again, you can get those straight from Harbor Freight or from me. So in other words, when I designed the layout for all those trays, the layout assumes students are ordering both kits. So if you don't get both kits, then your parts boxes will indicate some spots for parts to go that you don't have. And that's okay. It's just keep in mind that the 2 parts boxes are designed to handle parts from both of my kits. Okay? Now, that's for the 2 live classes, Electronics with Brian, and then Sensors, Motors, and More version 3 kit when you do Coding MicroPython, which will be for this school year. What if you watch the recordings for the other coding class we have? That one's called Coding Arduino C++. And let me see, I just clicked the wrong thing on my screen. So I'm going to click this and then we'll go here. So this screen looks very similar, but notice now this is mentioning Coding Arduino. Remember Coding Arduino, that uses the C++ language. And for that, it is the same Sensors, Motors, and More version 3 kit, but it's a different computer. And you actually want to get the Arduino Uno R3. So actually ignore that little Raspberry Pi Pico there. That's for the other kit. You'll be doing an Arduino Uno if you do the recordings, but everything else on this slide is correct. All right, well, leave one mistake out of my entire PowerPoint. I think I did a pretty good job. Now, how about ordering supplies? What if you're not sure what you need to order? After going through this video, that is totally okay. Also, perhaps you have taken some of my classes in the past and you're not sure what you may need to supplement or if you have all the right supplies. Please feel free to email me to brian@superchargedscience.com. And if you give me your order information or your full name and email address, I can look up past orders and let you know if you have what you need for the 26-27 school year. I also do want to mention that if you visit Unit 25 for electronics or Unit 29 for coding MicroPython, we do have a full shopping list of independent parts if you wanted to order and purchase your own set of parts. So that is available for you. But just keep in mind that if you order the kit from me, then you're getting all the supplies you need all bundled together. So you don't have to place orders for individual parts. So that is going to do it for this video. Thank you for your time in going through all of this. Please do not hesitate to email me, brian@superchargedscience.com, and I look forward to seeing you in the next school year. Thanks, bye.